Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is ScryMind, and this is a game on Twisted Meadows 1v1. I'm going to be the Orc player in this replay. My opponent is Elf, and we're both going to be doing sort of unusual strategies in the game. So he, as you can see, is going to be doing an Ancient of War creep on the Mercenary camp. A little bit of a risky strategy, but fairly effective a lot of times. And my strategy right now, it looks sort of normal, but it's actually going to be a strategy that I've done many times before in the context of 4v4 massing grunts with a Tauren Chieftain. Now you might think, okay, that's really silly. Why am I watching this audio? Well, the strategy is, while it does have some weaknesses, against certain things, it's going to be very effective. And one of the things it's going to be effective against, as you're going to see in this replay, is something like what my opponent is doing. He's getting a Tavern build. He's going to sort of skimp on the archers because he's going to have to uproot his Ancient of War to creep. His base is going to be somewhat open. One of the reasons for that, again, is Ancient of War creeping. Whereas his Ancient of War normally would be somewhere in his main base, sort of in a useful position to defend, to block off the Tree of Life, things like that. That's not going to be the case. So yeah, you're going to see all those things are going to sort of work against him. Again, if you Ancient of War creep and you go for archers, that means you're necessarily going to have some archers, which archers are fairly vulnerable to Shockwave. They're fairly vulnerable to grunts. Again, grunts are decent against buildings. They're decent against heroes. And my opponent is actually going to be getting a Tinker. And grunts against the Pocket Factory in sort of on open field battles is pretty decent. You know, the Pocket Factory takes extra damage from normal attacks, normal attack damage, which is going to be grunts. Not to mention the Pocket Factory can get hit with Shockwave as well. But the main sort of idea behind this strategy against Elf specifically, which is probably one of the easiest races to do this against, is the fact that grunts do normal damage. They can get pillage. Shockwave at level 2 will kill a wisp in one hit. Not just a wisp, but any wisp that it hits, basically, it's going to kill in one hit. And also it hits, Shockwave, of course, hits buildings. So I'm going to be creeping as quickly as I can to level 3 and then going right to the opponent's base. And I am going to use Shockwave to creep. One reason is the earlier you use your spells, if you have full mana, you're not regenerating any mana. So if I use 1 or 2 Shockwaves and then 4 minutes from now I go, I'm gonna engage in a battle or something, I will have been regenerating mana for some time as soon as I use my first spell. And also I do plan to get a Voodoo Lounge, which will allow me to get Clarity Potions to mitigate that. So basically the biggest thing though is getting level 3 very quickly. On some maps it's difficult against some strategies. Like if you were to go for a Demon Hunter and harass me, it would be very difficult to get level 3 in the sort of timing window that is ideal in my opinion, which is basically somewhere between 6 and 7 minutes. I think you definitely need to be sort of mounting an attack against them at that point, because any later, and they're probably going to have tier 2, their second hero might be out, and it could prove to be very difficult to actually, their tier 2 buildings could be in the way, and their base build could be a little bit more closed off at that point, and they could stop you. And if they get, if they stop your strategy and you don't do enough damage, and then now they have like tier 2 against your mass grunts, well, and you're one hero against 2 heroes, you're probably going to lose that game. So, but yeah, you're seeing both of us creep. He's going to pick up Troll Berserker, Troll Shadow Priest. And again, I'm actually going to do 2 more replays after this, doing different strategies. So you can look forward to that in the rest of the audio. But yeah, so far everything's fairly straightforward. We're both creeping. He's got level 3. I'm going to get level 3 at this camp. He got a greater heal potion at the mercenary camp. That's a pretty good item, though in terms of stopping my strategy, it's not exactly going to be all that useful, because I'm most likely not going to be focusing his hero too much. But anyway, he is going to pick up a panda. I need to heal. If he were to attack right now, I'd probably be in a little bit of trouble with all these damaged grunts, potentially. But especially if he had his panda like show up right now and start breath of firing everything. But you're going to see my base layout. I try to get the burrows in somewhat. I'm going to miss a couple of surrounds foolishly, but yeah, you see these burrows are sort of. I try to position them where they cover. They have a lot of coverage, like, you know, if I've got peons in there, they cover most of my base. This is potentially a open spot, maybe like right here, where it could probably drop a pocket factory, I guess. But other than that, though, I got my base pretty well covered. Try to keep them behind the sort of more sturdy buildings, since they have only heavy armor early on. But yeah, I realize this is just a distraction. I'd much rather just go to his base. If he wants to like send his tinker in there and take a lot of shots from the burrows and stuff, that's fine. You know, I can just put the peons in the burrows and I should be in good shape. But he did find the hole in my sort of coverage with the burrows, which is a little bit annoying. But the damage is going to be pretty limited. I don't know if he's got the engineering upgrade. Yeah, I think he got the engineering upgrade ability for the tinker at level 3, but which I think is correct, like the best sort of way to skill the hero. But anyway, I come to his base, I catch an ancient lore going up, I destroy that, and then I just go right for the tree of life. And we're gonna slow this down well, we'll leave it at 1 time speed until he sort of starts to bring his wisp to repair. So I haven't used Shockwave yet. What I'm waiting on is him to move his wisp to repair his Tree of Life. As soon as he does that, I'm going to pop as many wisps as I can. I missed one actually there, but I killed about 3 or 4 wisps with a Shockwave. And I hit the Tree of Life, I think. So now he's going to line him up again. Boom! I kill, I miss a couple, but I killed quite a lot of wisps. So he's got 3 wisps left. But again, if I'd have hit all those wisps, again, it's possible I could have killed all the wisps maybe if I would have aimed that a little bit better, and then he would have really been well. I don't know if he's got a wisp somewhere else, but yeah, he's got one up here. But yeah, I've really limited his economy. He's his lumber economy. He picked up a shredder, so he will be able to get that going. Actually, I think he needs a Tree of Life to return wood with that shredder, so that's pretty funny. The Hunter's Hall, I don't think he can return it there. So actually this shredder right now is offering 0 to his economy, which is pretty funny. But anyway, back to it though. I had pillage during that whole time. I killed so many wisps, and I barely lost anything. I think I lost at most 2 grunts. I don't know. I think I only had 50 food, so that's why I say I think I only lost 2 grunts at 44 food. But yeah, in terms of him defending this with archers and these trolls, not really gonna be happening. And he actually misses. He doesn't kill this troll. He's gonna pull back, and wow, he really makes a big mistake there. It doesn't really impact the real income of the game. He's gonna lose his game based on what's happened so far. Barring me like disconnecting or something, I could just A-click my army, and I don't think he could kill all these grunts in time. Perhaps if he like kited them, maybe. But anyway, I'm gonna take out this pocket factory. I wonder if 2 things. I don't know if the pocket factory counts as a building. I don't think it does for pillage. But also, I don't know about the tree of life or tree of ancient of lore. When they're building, I don't know if pillage counts when they're under construction. I would think it would. That was a pretty decent shockwave there. But yeah, you see, archers and troll berserker, they just don't really, with enough micro you can maybe make that work. But again, level 2 endurance aura shockwave, it's unlikely he can really hope to do anything against this army. Now I've got a lot of damage stuff. I could potentially pull back and go heal if I really wanted to be conservative, but I'm just, I don't really feel like doing that, sort of wasting wasting the time. I think I could just beat him right here and end the game, and that's pretty much what happens. I've got his hero mostly surrounded, so he's he's got a town portal that he can't use. He's got a staff of teleportation that he can use. Now, oh, I didn't point out he was building a tree of life here, and the troll trapper actually destroyed it. You know, so his DPS is enough to overcome the build speed of the tree of life. So, but anyway, this game is mostly over now. He is probably going to get some kills on these grunts because I'm like, I'm just attacking buildings and stuff. And he's got the pocket factory in an interesting, pretty decent location. I think I hit it with a shockwave. Well, I don't have the mana to hit it with shockwave at the moment, but yeah, I actually do sort of. I think I do pull back and heal. No, I don't. I sort of thought about. Oh, I pulled back for the pocket factory. That's what it was. That was actually a pretty solid threat at level 4 on the Tinker. But he's got all these items that he, aren't going to be doing much for him, honestly. But yeah, once you lose that Tree of Ages, you're in a lot of trouble. And the Dryads really aren't not that they're terrible against grunts or anything, but they're not like Druids of Talent, or they're not like other races like Wind Riders or Statue Fiends or human casters. They don't exactly pose quite as much risk to grunts as those things because Wind Riders do a lot of DPS and grunts can't touch them. The Tauren Chieftain without an orb can't touch them. Sorceresses, they do magic damage and slow, so they're basically fairly similar to the Dryad, except they do magic damage, which boosts their DPS against grunts. And they're only 2 food, whereas the Dryads are 3 food. Now, Dryads are magic immune, though, so that is one thing that's very useful. Being magic immune against a Tauren Chieftain, of course, is useful, of course. So again, I guess Dryads are about as good as Sorceresses against maybe against this strategy, but it wasn't. He only had 1 Ancient of Lore at the end of it, and his economy was gone. So again, it didn't really matter honestly if he had Ancients of Wind, I don't think, or Ancients of Lore. Again, the Druids of Talon, while they do magic damage, Fairy Fire is useful. They're only 2 food, sort of similar to the Sorceress. They are not magic immune, so if he's taking a level 2 or 3 Shockwave, they're going to go down fairly quickly. He's not going to have Cyclone, of course, if I knock out the Tree of Ages. So plus his supply was fairly damaged as well. He had like 30 supply, and he was at 26. So yeah, we can look through these the score screen here. Largest army, I had had him covered by about 11 food at our largest points. The units produced is really skewed because of the Tinker, the Pocket Factory, Robo Goblins count as a unit, so that sort of messes with things quite a bit in terms of the score screen. And then units killed. I killed more units. Heroes killed. I of course killed more heroes. And the big one though is buildings raised. 5 buildings raised, all with pillage, I think. One of them being a Tree of Ages. That's pretty massive. So in terms of the impact, and it's going to show up in the gold mine section here. He mined about 4,200. I mined about 6,300. So a good, it looks like 2,000, maybe 2,100. Extra gold that I mined. So compared to him, so yeah, that's a pretty, and I don't know if that counts. I don't know if I would assume pillage actually doesn't show up in those numbers. I might be wrong, but either way, if it does, then it's of course, sort of exactly what it is here. And if it doesn't, then this is actually underestimating the gold difference that we had. So that's a sort of an obscure question there, but again, end of the day though, I had more resources to work with, and that translated into a larger army, which translated, of course, into more units killed, more buildings destroyed, and again, getting the win fairly easily. So, so the next replay will be Um, a pretty risky strategy. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, to be honest. But as far as just, consistency wise and everything, I'll see if I can find the replay first before I go through and tell you about it. So yeah, this is a big risk, big win. So yeah, another game on Twisted Meadows. This time I'm going to be the elf player, and I'm going to be going up against an orc. I'm spawned at the top left. Again, my opponent spawned at the bottom right. Um, so yeah, in this replay, I'm going to be, again, doing another unusual strategy. So I know my opponent is orc, I think. And what I decide to do is, in this new patch, the Priest of the Moon Scout Owl, patch 1.29, the Scout Owl's mana cost has been reduced by 50% at level 1. So instead of 100 mana, it only costs 50 mana to summon a Scout Owl, which makes it much more effective, because I can, not only is it going to use Moon Wells, Moon Juice less, but it's also going to allow me to very liberally use Scout Owl and not worry about it. So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I think it's a fairly useful ability. The problem is a lot of times it doesn't offer sort of in combat, sort of in battle advantage, unless they have like a Blade Master or Shadow Meld or something. But it doesn't add DPS typically. So in a lot of circumstances, if everything else is equal, let's say the opponent just did really well at scouting and he's a really good player, the advantage that you're going to get with Scout Owl potentially isn't enough to justify losing out on, say, an extra 10% damage from True Shot Aura, for example, or something else. If the opponent can basically get the same level of information by scouting that you're going to get with Scout Owl, then he will be able to utilize his hero spells and abilities for damage output, which could be a problem. So let's go ahead and look at the opponent's point of view. He's gone for a Blade Master. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure why he's damaged. That is very odd. Yeah, I don't see any creeps that are. Oh, okay, I see what he did. He went and crept this troll trapper for the tome. So I guess that's what he did, and he's gonna go ahead and heal up. So that's not too unusual. Some players like to do that. He gets away with it pretty easily. But I do get to cancel his salves now, so this is very not great for him. He probably needs to like Windwalk or Shadow, use the Speed Scroll to get away, so he can use his salves, healing salves. But anyway, you'll notice I have not built an Ancient of War in my base or anywhere else, and I'm attacking immediately. Now I've moved a bunch of wisps over to an out of the way spot, because I know if he does scout, or if he does just come harass my base at any point during my tech, I'm not gonna be in a great position to stop him. Now I can shift these wisps back and forth. I can shift them in and out of the gold mine and stuff. But the chances that he can kill some of them or maybe detonate some of them is greater than zero. It's not a negligible risk, honestly. I mean, I'm a decent player. I'm doing pretty well right now keeping them alive. But some of that is because his Blade Master was already damaged, so he had to be a little bit careful going in to my base. But yeah, he's noticed, like I said, he's noticed that my base is completely empty. So looks like he's going to go really hard on the rush now, which is a good decision. He's throwing up a War Mill. He's bringing 3 peons. He's not doing great with his hero micro, and I pick up a Naga Sea Witch. Now, I missed the first couple of attacks on Frost Arrow. That's unfortunate, because I could have killed his hero with basically 1 or 2 more attacks. So yeah, my micro I didn't do the greatest there, and I'm throwing up 3 Ancients of Wind over here. So So now he's probably thinking, okay, this Tower Rush, he doesn't have any buildings in his main base. I should be able to maybe get this done. But like I said, the problem is his hero took so much damage early, and I made it harder for him to heal. I'm basically just buying myself enough time to get these Jewels of the Talon out. And this was the idea, was to get, 3 Ancients of Wind and Masters of Talon as soon as I possibly could, and try to get an advantage in the mid game. And then go in the late game, maybe get Cyclone or Chimera to go with this. So, depending on what was going on. So yeah, he's doing this tower push, and basically this is do or die. Sort of. This is like an all-in situation. If his towers get up and he does enough damage, I could be in some big trouble. But again, it's with these moon wells and with the I can build Ancients of War. I've got basically all the advantages are on my side here. Now the Ancients of Wind are not really right in my base, so they still have to walk a little ways to help me defend this. But I can use these moon wells and stay in the battle doing the damage. Whereas if I was fighting him somewhere else, these moon wells would not be as easily available. These ancients, bring Wisp to build Ancients of War. That would not be an option. And the further I'm fighting away from the Ancients of Wind, the less quickly the Druids of the Talon are going to get involved. But again, these towers, they take extra from magic damage. So while they do extra damage to the Druids of the Talon, they're going to go down very quickly. And once the towers are gone, this is really not a big threat. If he had Serpent Wards, he'd probably be in decent shape here. I don't know if I don't know what he's doing, to be honest. I haven't seen him cast a single spell yet. He needs to be dropping Serpent Wards, just spamming them. And he might have a chance here if he did that. I don't necessarily know that he would have won this battle, but definitely he would have had a much greater chance to win if he had 3, 4 Serpent Wards. Serpent Wards are immune to magic damage, so Frost Arrow, they're not taking extra from Frost Arrow. They can't be Fairy Fired. They can't be attacked at all by the Druids of Talon. So, I guess did he have Heal Wave? He either went Heal Wave or Hex. Okay, he went Heal Wave. Wow, and he only healed his Shadow Hunter there. So that was a big mistake on his part. Healing is a passive thing, and he really needed the DPS there. You can cast 3 Serpent Wards for every 1 Heal Wave, and that was sort of a timing thing. So it would have given him a much better chance to sort of hold those towers and do some damage. But I don't know if he'd have won. It definitely would have given him a better shot to win, I think, there if he just picked Serpent Wards. So, Gold Mine was exactly the same there. Everything, nobody had an expansion. I didn't stop mining gold, to defend really or anything. Heroes, I ended up with higher hero levels, but that's partially a result of killing one of his heroes, killing some towers, killing more units. Largest army, I was about 6 food ahead, apparently. So yeah, but basically though, that was like Grunts versus Druid of the Talon, and then Towers versus Druid of the Talon, and him sort of being behind because of the damage he took trying to creep that little troll trapper. The big thing about these weird aggressive item creeping strategies is you're taking a full, that's a pretty large creep camp that you have to engage to go for that troll trapper. A lot of time, if you get like a Tome of Experience, I think you can get a Tome of Experience there. That can be great. If he gets a Tome of Agility, that can be great on the Blade Master. But personally, I've always hesitated on at least that specific one. Now, if you're getting like a Claws of Attack or something, that makes a little bit more sense generally, or larger items. But just for a Tome, I mean, you're really risking it. If you get a anything other than a Tome of Agility or a Tome of Experience, it's pretty silly to take all that damage. The flip side is you've got Healing Salves and Clarity Potions, so it's sort of taking the damage temporarily. To use one Healing Salve, you get 3 charges for 100 gold. So in terms of the cost, you might say one healing salve is like 33 gold. And, you might say, well, that's not a big deal. It heals up pretty quickly. But if you don't get to heal, for whatever reason, you could find yourself in some serious trouble in that situation. But, so I don't know if the reward necessarily um, is greater than the risk or the damage that you take, so to speak. So, or the cost, I guess you could say. So, so yeah, I'm not really the greatest fan of doing it for a tome. Now, if you're getting like on the certain maps where you can get like a watch reward and a decent item, kill a level 5 creep like the ogre magi, for example, that makes a lot more sense to me to do that. The reward is a lot better, but I've seen a lot of games where pro players will do that with orc. So it's I guess in some sense it makes sense. At some level it's a reasonable strategy, but personally I'm just not the biggest fan of it myself. But anyway, this is going to be another game where I'm playing Elf. This is an Elf mirror match on Turtle Rock. I'm the red player here at Kingswood. My opponent is going to be doing an Ancient of War creep. It looks like he's going for a Tavern Hero. I think he goes for an Alchemist, which the Alchemist got a lot of buffs in this patch, and I already thought the Alchemist actually was a very underrated hero. So I'm actually a pretty big fan of him, but in this particular replay, I'm going to be going for a Priestess of the Moon. And for a couple of games on this account, basically what I did was I sort of decided on a single unit that I thought would be interesting and effective to mass at a certain point against my opponent's race. And you might say, well, that's what people do all the time. But the unit I chose in this game was the Glaive Thrower. So that's, of course, going to be an interesting sort of choice. It doesn't go as well as it could have in this game, actually. You'll see why in a bit, but I end up losing the Scout Wisp, sort of unfortunately, running into an Ancient of War that I didn't really expect to be there. But, and a little goofy chat here, I'm telling him not to trespass in the Kingswood. But anyway, you're going to see... But once again, I'm going for the Priestess of the Moon. I've gone for the Scout Owl. I send the Scout Owl over here. I think I do still one turtle here, but yeah, I'm just gonna keep tabs on him with the Scout Owl. And I think he went for Chemical Rage, perhaps, which personally I like to go for Acid Bomb. But in terms of like chasing down a hero, I guess Chemical Rage is interesting. But anyway, I say, you poached my turtles. Just sort of messing with him. But yeah, he's gonna be chasing me around. I try to aggro these creeps. He takes one shot. Let's see how many shots he takes from these creeps. One. I think he takes at least two. Let's see, 2, 3. He took 3 shots. So I guess that worked out somewhat well. And yeah, I'm going to go back towards his main base. Again, I don't have any Glaive Throwers. They're really slow to... Glaive Throwers, yeah. They're really slow to build. They're slow moving. They're not exactly the greatest against a melee hero, of course. So yeah, I'm really just looking to do some kind of damage with this Priestess while I'm waiting for my Glaive Thrower mass. And the other part about this strategy is, with the Scout Owl, one of the important things with Glaive Throwers is if you need to know where your opponent's army is, because getting caught on open ground or out of position is really, really bad for the Glaive Throwers, or bad for you if you're massing Glaive Throwers. And that's sort of going to happen here in a bit. You're going to see sort of that in action, but yeah, he's going to spend some gold picking up a Staff of Teleportation. It's a little bit odd, honestly, but anyway, I don't exactly know what he expects of me at this point. I'll slow it down the replay. He hasn't actually scouted me since I've got the 2 Ancients of War. But he probably assumes, since I'm going for a Priestess, that I will be massing Huntresses, maybe Glaive Throwers, because that's in the Elf Mirror, that's a strategy that you will see often. Alternatively, I could be teching to Hippogriff Riders. That's something else that you can do with a Priestess. So he got an Archer. He's only got the 1 Archer, and his Alchemist hits air, I guess, but yeah, I'm just trying to like distract him. I don't want him to get like level 3 before I show up. I wake these creeps up. This was a little bit of a worse one because I was between the creeps and his army, so I was for sure gonna take 1 shot from a creep, and it was less likely they were actually gonna get to aggro on his army. So I didn't do the greatest job there. I throw up a Scout Owl. He actually has bought a Dust, and I'm gonna run. So he spent another 75 gold on something that's not super useful. Yeah, I'm going to move these Glaive Throwers into position. Now that he's far away from his base, I move the Glaive Throwers into position to start damaging his buildings. So I've knocked out 1 Ancient of War. I'm going to knock out this Moonwell next. And he's out of position. He could have Town Portaled, but I guess he just decided he'd rather just run. I mean, so what that means is I'm going to kill, I canceled a Moonwell. I might have destroyed it, I don't know, but it would have been good to, get his Tree of Life if I could have done that, but I just went for the production buildings instead. So, again, the only thing I lost basically was the Town Portal. I took about 50% damage on 1 Glaive Thrower, but I didn't lose it. But now he knows what my strategy is. So, going forward in this game, he is aware of what I'm trying to do. He's probably aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the strategy. And here is where we're sort of we're trending into a situation where we're going to be both sort of at this shop creep camp, I think, here in a second. So, but yeah, I'm trying to creep this with Glaive Throwers. It's really awkward. I mean, it's not like impossible. The range and the damage is pretty decent on the Glaive Throwers, but you have to watch out because of the splash damage and the minimum range. But yeah, we're both gonna end up at this. To be honest, past level 2, I probably should have just went to his base at this point, or even before creeping that. But again, I didn't specifically know he'd be over here on this side of the map. I really didn't expect him to be. So he aggroes the creep camp. It's got Bloodlust. They turn and they go towards my army, unfortunately. So basically, this is going to be a creep jack, which is in a really bad positioning. This type of army is not set up to, again, not to make excuses, but Glaive Throwers are really slow. Their armor is, or their hit points rather, is really poor at 300. So this is the problem with this type of army, and the fact that he's got fast moving units. It was a creep jack, so I was sort of, like the first volley or two was going to the creeps, not his army. I need to detonate these Quill Beasts. For sure to limit his damage output. Let's see if I ever do detonate these. Nope. So yeah, I've lost a ton of Glaive Throwers now. That's bad news. I did kill like all of his Huntresses, it looks like. So that's, the fact that he had to rebuild his Ancients of War and everything. That's not terrible, but yeah, I probably lost more than him in a lot of ways. But I'm at level 3 now, so I've got level 2 True Shot Aura, which is going to be giving the Glaive Throwers plus 11 damage every shot. I do have 1 attack upgrade to boost that up there. So I'm at 38 food. He is at 30, so I do have a food advantage. But he's got summons, so depending on how you want to rate those, micro wise, positioning wise, I probably could have saved that Glaive Thrower. I'm doing a pretty sloppy job here with the Glaive Throwers. I mean, it's difficult to micro them, for sure. But yeah, I definitely shouldn't be losing them as quickly as I am like this. But he's got 2 melee heroes. One of them is a summon hero. The Alchemist's damage output is insane. No, he pulls back. So I keep about 4 or 5 glaive throwers alive here. I've got 3 Ancients of War now, so I can really pump them out. I say really, they're fairly expensive at 210 gold. 3 food, but 60. I think it's 60 lumber. They cost a lot of lumber actually, but and the build time is actually fairly long. Um, but yeah, if you look at what units he's building Huntresses and Dryads now, which are both unarmored. So that's sort of the idea is siege damage is going to be good against Huntresses, it's going to be good against Dryads, it's going to be good against Druids of the Talon, and it's good against buildings. So it's potentially, I mean, really the biggest threat is either air units or bears, or like melee heroes like a Demon Hunter and Alchemist. These are like the biggest real threats to the glaive throwers, but they're glass cannon type units. You know, at 300 hit points, that's less hit points than even an archer, I think. No, sorry, archer's 245. But it's less hit points than pretty much every other unit that he can make. Look at the Dryad, is 435. You look at the Huntress, it's 600. So yeah, you know, it's a low amount of hit points, and it doesn't get, the glaive throwers do not benefit from armor upgrades. So, you know, while 2 armor is, you know, is about normal, I think, for the cost of the unit, it doesn't get any better. You can't, like, you know, mitigate that low hit points by getting armor upgrades because they don't receive armor upgrades. And again, for balancing reasons, that's probably reasonable. If you could get, you know, an armor upgrade and Elf having the only tier 1 siege unit with extreme range, you know, that might be too much. I don't think it would be totally broken, but again, it you know, it's just like a little bit of a disadvantage for the glaive throwers. But regardless, I'm going to see that he's actually getting air units now. Uh, fairy dragons at least. So that's a little bit scary. I'm not going to have very much anti-air. I think that's what forces me to get archers, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I've added some huntresses. This is mainly to deal with his heroes. Glaive throwers are not going to be able to deal with his heroes very well, as they're both melee. They're both high hit point heroes. So I need something to deal with that. And the archers are going to be required to deal with these fairy dragons. But again, all these units are going to be getting true shot, so that's pretty useful. They all share the same attack upgrades, also useful in terms of efficiency. I do not have, I've got an armor scroll, but I do not have a town portal. So yeah, we're going to have a battle here, and I pop the armor scroll. I miss about half of my units, apparently, so that was dumb. But yeah, he's taking, you know, this wasn't a creep jack situation. He's basically taking the full, you know, brunt of my damage on all of his dryads, which are unarmored. He's going to try to use heal spray. One good thing about the glaive throwers is they're mechanical, so they don't get acid bomb, I don't think. So that's pretty useful as well. So, but yeah, it ends up he had all those unarmored units. I think archers and then switching to fairy dragons would have been his best hope. Though archers they're not unarmored, so they don't take extra from glaive throwers. They are low hit points. They do have low hit points, so that's their weakness, and why glaive throwers aren't terrible against archers. The other thing is their archers are ranged, so unlike, you know, some melee unit like a footman or a grunt or a melee hero, a bear, it's a little bit weird to like run your archers into melee range trying to abuse the glaive thrower's minimum range. So he didn't really do that, and he just got, you know, sort of rolled over. And the big thing with it's actually really dangerous if he would have gotten the level 2 Hawk, but to do magic damage, and it's an air unit, so you have to watch for that. But back to what I was going to say is, if you're out of position for too long against glaive throwers, especially with True Shot Aura, you know, you stand to lose a substantial amount of buildings, which can be very bad. And then if you lose a battle against glaive throwers, same thing applies. If you don't have a town portal at certain points, you know, Same thing applies if you're out of position. If all your units are clumped together, it's potentially very dangerous against the splash damage. So there's a lot of opportunities to really punish your opponent for things with certain kinds of armies, like mass glaive throwers, like mass mortars, like mass tanks, bat riders, for example, raiders. These types of armies can really sort of abuse your opponent if they make some mistakes. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I like the strategy. Like, for example, take mass dryads like he was doing. What were like the weaknesses that he could sort of punish me for with positioning? If he caught me like really damaged without a town portal somewhere, I couldn't run. You can't really run from dryads that effectively. If I was massing huntresses, dryads would be very strong. But in terms of dealing with my buildings, sieging my base, not so much. Killing my heroes, piercing damage is not amazing. So in terms of massing dryads, it has some. I mean, everything has its weaknesses, but there's just not quite as much he can exploit with dryads, in my opinion. They're not as big of a threat, I'll say. When a threat with massive glaive throwers is just losing your whole base in the span of like 15, 20 seconds, if they're, if it's undefended, that's a much bigger threat than anything the dryads are going to do to a base. So, yeah, that's sort of the thought process behind massing glaive throwers. And again, it's a timing window thing. If you leave your opponent alone for too long, to get certain kinds of, bears, for example, Master Druids of the Claw, a level 3 Demon Hunter with Adept Druids of the Claw, Demon Hunter Naga, all these things are going to potentially be very dangerous. A Beastmaster with level 2 Hawk, that is a really strong weapon against glaive throwers. If they get that, you're basically in trouble, because you're gonna have to have archers or some kind of dispel probably, and if you've been putting significant resources to getting glaive throwers, you're probably not going to have it. Now I actually get Starfall, and he doesn't have an interrupt with his 2 heroes and being elf. He doesn't have any kind of interrupt unit that he can. He had Cyclone, but he doesn't. So yeah, this Starfall is going to really. I probably could have gone a little bit further in to get these wisps, but yeah, he's just gonna decide. Well, I can't stop his Starfall. I'll at least keep my army away from it, which is not unreasonable. But it's a real problem for him here, because he's going to lose, 3 buildings so far. He's probably going to lose another building. Now his army comes in, and he is going to take some shots from Starfall. And I don't know how much damage it did per attack to these dryads, but a decent amount here. So again, what has he got? He's got a handful of dryads. Now I've switched to archers and huntresses. But to deal with his army, mostly because he was getting these air units, I had to get archers. Is the main thing. The other thing is his Beastmaster is level 3, so I have to worry about dealing with the air units, like I said. So if I keep massing glaive throwers, I'm probably going to get into a situation where I start losing too many glaive throwers to the air units, and then I won't have anything to deal with his heroes, which would be a big problem. And if I can kill like half his base, but I lose my whole army, and have to rebuild, but his heroes are like power level, I probably won't be able to pull that off with a Priestess of the Moon. If it was like a level 7 Demon Hunter, that's a little bit of a different story, but this is a Priestess of the Moon. So without units, a level 7 Priestess is not exactly all that scary. I mean, Starfall can be scary, but if you don't have an interrupt ability, but other than that, it's just Other than that, getting a good starfall off, the priestess damage output and stats and everything are just sort of average, I would say, in terms of heroes. You don't get massive burst damage. Uh, your aura is severely limited if you don't have units. So, um, but yeah, the game was pretty interesting. The glaive thrower strategy is probably not viable at a high level, especially if they know it's coming. But but sort of on paper and in theory, it's not terrible. Again, you have seen probably if you've seen any like pro level elf versus elf games, you've probably you probably have seen games where there's a priestess of the moon and a bunch of huntresses and glaive throwers as like a strategy. Now they're not going to go like 100% glaive throwers. You generally will not see that, uh, which again there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one of the biggest ones is the hit point value of the glaive throwers is low. The minimum range can be a problem, but and then like I said, air units. Is while air units are strong as huntresses as well, if you can't run with glaive throwers, whereas huntresses you can run, back and forth. Um, at high level games, that's really important. Being able to run in and out, micro kiting. It's with slow units. It's like it doesn't matter how, you know. I mean, I guess in a certain sense, if you're really good at micro and positioning, then you can sort of mitigate it. Like keep your positioning really solid, really good. Um, so, if they're chasing your units around, they're getting punished. But glaive throwers are really slow. That's not something you can totally overcome with micro or like game sense. The best you can hope for is to hit in good positioning at good timings, and not lose everything, basically. And so yeah, that's sort of what happened here. Again, that the creep jack situation, it wasn't like a hard creep jack, but the fact that I had units that have a minimum range and low hit points made it and he had two heroes, made it easy for him to sort of punish me there. Um, Whereas if he had been sort of creeping in and I came and attacked him, it probably would have been the opposite. He would have taken like a full volley from the glaive throwers probably on his units, and then we would have had a battle. The creeps would have been focusing him potentially more than me, not hitting me with a snare and all that stuff, and then the game would have probably just been over because he would have lost too much there, I would think. But again, that sort of comes down to me, you know, getting the positioning like it was, not pulling back when, the timing. I probably should have just not crept at that point. I probably should have just went to his base. Again, I had Scout Owl. I needed to, be aware of where he was, and probably go for the base. Prioritize going for the base versus like level 3, because the longer the game goes, the more chance he started to get air units. He started to level his heroes. If he levels that Beastmaster up enough, no amount of glaive throwers is going to help me. To be honest, and the same with the fairy dragon. It forced me to respond and get archers. If I didn't, if I just kept going glaive throwers, anything from like 2 to 4 fairy dragons could just AFK on, attack move my army and kill the glaive throwers very quickly. He could have gone in my base and gone for wisps, lumber wisps. But again, he does have to be careful to let me start attacking his base. Obviously, that's going to be bad news. So, but yeah, I thought these replays were pretty interesting. I like to frequently, or at least every now and then, I like to sort of tinker around with some different strategies, and see how well I can do with them. Again, I'm not playing at the highest level, so the highest level opponents. So it might be a little bit misleading when you see these strategies working, it's like against a high level player, they might not have any chance to win for sure. But um, so keep that in mind when you're watching these replays, of course. But chances are if you're an average player, then you might not have to worry as much about sort of facing the highest level players anyway. But anyway, the idea is it's sort of, I find it interesting or appealing to do it because it sort of emphasizes the strategy element a little bit more. Not to say that, not, not to say that the cookie cutter quote unquote standard strategies they don't rely on strategy. They do. It's just once everybody is going for the standard build order, you can sort of try to figure out the weaknesses and exploit that. And that's, it's interesting. The game has been around so long that those strategies have, I'm not going to say that everything's been explored completely, but certain strategies have been pretty extensively tested through games, hundreds, thousands of games. And so in that sense, when you're talking about finding something that's incredibly strong against the standard strategies, there's not exactly a strategy generally that's just going to, that like an average player is going to be able to beat the world class player with any consistency just because of, I've got this strategy. The sort of metagame standard strategies as they sort of exist right now, they're versatile enough where there's not really gaping or massive holes in the strategy. Like most of the strategies will have some easy route to get anti-air if that's the problem, anti-magic, not specifically requiring certain counters for whatever reason. Maybe the heroes cover that, like elf versus orc. The standard hero combination a lot of times for that matchup is Demon Hunter, Beastmaster, Tinker, and or Firelord. I've seen, and basically the anti-air is covered by like a Demon Hunter with an orb, the Beastmaster's summons, and potentially lava spawns if that's what he goes for third, but and Druids of the Talon. So he's got plenty of anti-air. He's got Cyclone to deal with any kind of, a lot of different kinds of units and heroes, and positioning problems. He can go crow form to avoid certain things, so like Shockwave and stuff like that. So yeah, that type of strategy against orcs specifically, you can't just mass air. That's probably not exactly going to work. Early game you've got the Demon Hunter. Mid game you've got like summons and stuff. So, in terms of versatility, it's pretty versatile. And players have been trying to sort of find the weakness, and there's nothing that can just say, oh, he's going Druids of the Talon, I'm going to do this and just run all over him. That's sort of a sign of a good strategy, that there isn't, that it doesn't just get countered to the point where you can't really just go for that strategy right off the bat in every single game against Orc, as it seems that players do now. But and again, that applies to most of the mainstream strategies like Death Knight, Fiends, Lich. Sure, there's weaknesses, but the core units and the core heroes are fairly solid, fairly versatile, fairly strong against a lot of stuff. Anti-air, you've got Web, you've got Death Coil, you've got Frost Nova. Magic, you can go for Destroyers if you need anti-magic. You've got a Slaughterhouse typically, so if you need, for whatever reason, you want to get meat wagons if you're against tanks, siege engines, you can do that. Abominations if you're against like rifles or something. So your build has some versatility sort of built in, your build order and your buildings, and again your units, if they don't go air, maybe you don't even need to get web. So there's a cost that you can maybe avoid. Uh, um, but yeah, you get the killing heroes. You got a bunch of nuke spells. You got Orb of Corruption is a fairly strong orb, works well with the strategy. The one weakness, I guess, is like fortified buildings, which again I've sort of harped on before. So for undead, their lack of really, in my opinion, really efficient siege units, diverse siege units, and also the lack of building upgrades that the other races, the other races all have some sort of building, sort of survivability upgrade, whether Nature's Blessing, masonry upgrades for human, fortified burrows for burrows and towers, or fortified, whatever that upgrade is called, and then spiked armor for the burrows, and all the buildings actually. You can get spike upgrades against melee units and heroes. So, and again, Nature's Blessing for elf. So you got all these building upgrades that other races can get. Other races have 3 separate siege units choices. Some of them might not be that great, like a mountain giant with a tree club. Grabbing a tree club. It's not exactly like the most effective siege unit, but again, it's an option. Other options, of course, glaive throwers and chimera. Those are a little bit, more interesting. And then on the other hand, like the core undead unit is piercing damage, either piercing or magic. Beings, destroyers, frostworms. Those are sort of like some core units that you will see very frequently showing up. That damage type is really bad against fortified armor, which is nearly all the buildings. So, and then you've got a bunch of nuke spells that by and large don't hit buildings. Death Coil, Frost Nova, Impale, Carrion Swarm. 0 damage to buildings on those. Now, if you get Death and Decay, okay, maybe you can Death and Decay some buildings. That's an option. But other than that, you're pretty much out of luck dealing with buildings. So, and so that really limits your sort of options. Now, sort of thematically, or in terms of all the races having their strengths and weaknesses, it's arguably not bad that there's a race that's sort of bad against buildings, but better against, I say better, sort of more focused on, nuking and, sort of undead, you might say, is interesting to have them as like an offensive, more offensive, focused race. Killing stuff sort of goes with the like dead theme or undead or whatever. But yeah, in terms of like how the games play out, it's it that is a significant sort of weakness to deal with, I think. But anyway, yeah, it's always fun to sort of explore some maybe underused strategies or heroes or timings, and you might stumble upon something that's pretty fun or pretty effective that nobody else is using. There was a lot of buffs to heroes and stuff lately. Um, on the patch 1.29, and a lot of those were pretty good changes in my opinion. It sort of buffed up some underused heroes. Some of the heroes that got buffed weren't underused though, like the Naga and the Shadow Hunter, the Panda. Some of these heroes, the Mountain King, I think came out with a buff at sort of overall. I think he got a buff. These were not underused heroes, so I sort of the Torrent Chieftain, arguably. In terms of buffing those heroes, you sort of would hesitate to do it. I mean, they're not overpowered really, but so it's sort of relative. Like, well, comparing them to like a Demon Hunter, a Blade Master, Death Knight, Archmage, you're gonna say, well, they're about the same. So maybe so. But yeah, it does give you some, opportunities to experiment with different heroes at least, because some of the heroes got significant buffs. And again, I've won games that I think in the previous patch I would have most likely lost just because of like some hero buffs that happened. You know, but anyway, that's going to be the end of this audio. Hopefully you found the 3 replays entertaining, interesting. The strategies, hopefully you enjoyed that, and my explanation of them hopefully will be very useful for you thinking about it. So, but anyway, this is going to be ScryMind signing out.